Great. Thank you very much indeed. So we move on now to Matthew. And Matthew Maxwell is a third-year PhD candidate looking at the creative utility of generative AI. Matthew spent 25 years as a creative director in interactive design and advertising. Then AI appeared, and he realized it was time to learn a few new tricks. So, let's hear those new tricks.
Hear them and see them and hear them, hopefully. Thanks, Brian. So, uh, uh, artificial intelligence. We hear and we think a lot about the intelligence part of it and whether this is intelligence and what constitutes its intelligence and how that intelligence works. I'm becoming more and more interested in the artificial part of the name of the term. Because when we talk about something being artificial, presumably it's in contrast to something which is not artificial, which is real or which is organic or which is, but that's in turn very difficult to describe or define. And very quickly it comes down to questions of truth and falsehood. If something is artificial, can it actually be claimed to be true, or is it a false thing in some way? And this whole area, consequently, of truth and falsehood is an absolute quagmire, which my supervisor, Vlad Murario, has been advising me to avoid because it really does become too complicated. But unfortunately, it's just too interesting. So I'm going to just carry on. There's a quote there as well from Shakespeare, from The Rape of Lucretia, which the relevance of which I think will become clear later on in this 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Time's glory is to unmask falsehood and bring truth to light. There's a number of elements in that sentence. Truth and falsehood, obviously, but also the idea of time and time's ability to reveal and to unconceal or to unmask truth and bring it out into the light. And light, obviously, being what the emanations of AI consists of, is another very important element in it. So once again, Shakespeare nails it in a sentence. All the bits are there. So I'm going to try and unpick this as we go. This is a painting I did about 2020. I think it was in the middle of the COVID, in the middle of lockdown. It's a view down north, up down Bishopsgate, a street in the city of London, which heads north and into Shoreditch. And it at the time I was donating blood, so I would go into Shoreditch and the place would be absolutely deserted, which was really freaky. This sort of busiest part of town, really, usually the commotion and bustling of people and energy and activity was completely empty. It was a very, very strange experience. And I kind of, you can see on the left there, there's this sort of bits of street furniture and a bit of signage and things. And I kind of felt it needed some words on it or some kind of type or some kind of letter to make it work. I can't quite remember why I hit on this word true. I kind of liked its very sort of definitive assertion, and it's a very bold statement. It goes beyond any kind of true or false Boolean determination because it has moral and ethical territories. You know, what is true to one's word is an honourable quality. And Polonius urges Hamlet to thine own self be true. So it describes these sort of abstract human qualities, but it can also indicate empirical facts about the physical world. It can have that correspondence to facts that your passport photo is a true likeness, or you have true north. So it's kind of an interesting thing to have, but at the same time, of course, it's not true because it's not a street sign; it's just a painting. And that magpie that's sitting on top of it, I mean, it could be sitting on the sign, or it could be sitting on the horizon line. It could be like a massive giant bird. The whole process of painting is full of lies. And I spent most of my adult life trying to learn how to paint. And I'm not quite convinced I'm getting any better, to be honest with you. So when I asked AI to have a go at the same subject, what amazed me was, excuse me, how quickly and with such sort of confidence and bravado it could imitate it. It could create false paintings. It could create these false paintings, and you can see if you do a close up that it's really, really good at imitating the brushstrokes and the thinness of paint and the way that it disperses across itself and does all the things that painting does. And kind of reminded me why painting, qualifies as being true, because it has this inescapable actuality. Painting is a collusion of the matter, of the pigments that make up it. Oh, Mike, I think you've given me your cough, which is right, but fortunately I'm equipped today with my. Give me a pause while I have a slug on this. So the proof of this is painting is true because it exists, it is itself. It's a being in the world like us. It gets wet in the rain, it burns in the sun. It has a story to tell. It does all of these things. So I've been thinking a lot about truth and falsehood in visual art and how that works. And as I said, this is a really difficult area because there's really no consensus about where it sits. Correspondence truth, coherence truth, whether you're looking at Aristotle or Hegel or the idealists, or the whole world is just really to be avoided. And I found this very, very confusing because how is this really helping? So what I thought I'd do was I'd look at it from a different area and try and work out a formula that might help. And rather than talking about truth, I would talk about something which really was central to the purpose and the origin and the essence of the painting in the first place, which is this idea of genius loci. The genius loci in Latin, it's literally translated, I guess, the spirit of a place, something which is in a place which makes that place special. It's some kind of ineffable presence or quality or power. And it's pretty much a universal instinct in humans. I mean, all cultures and religions have this idea of sacred places and places to a greater or lesser degree of animism in there. And looking at the constituents of these paintings, whether they be artificial or whether they be true, organic and natural or not, they have a number of different elements. So there's the organic creativity, which is me, and my acquired skills, my sensibility, and what Mike actually called lived realities, struggles, emotions, and personal history. This is the thing. These are the ingredients. And then there's computational creativity, which arguably has none of those, or admittedly has none of those, has no lived realities, but it does have an enormous repertoire and technical virtuosity, which I could never in 100 lifetimes hope to imitate or acquire. In the actual location, of course, you've got the topographical memory, you've got the memory of the place, and that's both in the architecture and the archaeology and in the geology, and what makes it special. Why have people decided to live there? It's partly the geography, but it's also partly the fact that there is something there which is special. And then, of course, there's the cultural memory, which informs all of these. And if you bring those together, this is that part of Shoreditch which I was painting. This is a bird's eye view. This is Shoreditch. This is the city to the south, and you can see it's a busy built up place, and it's been that way for the last 500 years or so, because up there at the top is the site of the original Elizabethan theatre where Shakespeare and his company first started working in about 1590. And then when they got kicked out of there, they moved about 300 meters south to a place here and created the Curtain Theatre. And so the whole, this is the kind of epicenter of Elizabethan theatre and Shakespearean theatre, and that's the cultural memory that's inherent in it. And right there in the middle on Curtain Road, you can see I am having an exhibition there on the 23rd of opening on the 23rd of April, which is Shakespeare's birth and death day. He managed to be born and die on the same day, which is why nobody really believes he's real. I do, incidentally. So I'm going to talk about that, and because this is a practice-led research, and so the theory is that maybe the genius loci holds some kind of clue, and maybe it's most apparent at that point, that nexus where all of these different things intersect. And I found this gallery, which has these glass. It's an old retail store, and it has these big glass boxes, as you can see here, and a big window which looks out onto the street. And I have been working with our amazing technical staff. I think it's worth just pointing out that at Middlesex we are incredibly fortunate to have such talent and such equipment. And we've been building and I'm going to show you a little clip of what we're going to show. So this is the gallery. This is the big wall here, and we're going to be projecting onto this wall. Once again, creating light, creating an illusion of theatricality, which is completely false. And yet, because it consists of a number of different axes of information, has a reality all of its own. This is just a little clip. I have to come and see the whole thing in detail. So there'll be lots of fun stuff like that. And yeah, appearance, reality, truth, falsehood. The theatre, of course, is a great metaphor for that because it is at the same time artificial. You know you're looking at actors, but then again, you forget that you're looking at actors and you engage emotionally because there is something about that liminal space between sense and nonsense, which does seem to be a perennial attraction for humans. And it's something that AI seems to be particularly adept at creating. So I'm not quite sure how I'm doing for time, probably a bit over. I'm also showing in this show a lot of still images exploring some of these Shakespearean themes because to be honest, I'm not a great fan of Shakespeare. I really struggle. I've sat through The Rape of Lucretia, and it was an incredibly painful 2 hours. I'm not that keen on the plays, but I do really like the poetry, and I really like some of the kind of themes which do seem to be perennial. One of them being disguise, as in putting on a false front in order to achieve a particular purpose. And in Shakespeare, there's a lot of that. Not only was it very important in Shakespearean in Elizabethan society to display who you were, what social class you were, what your profession was, and there were a lot of strictures against being in disguise. But of course, in the theatre, you put on a robe, you're a king. You can imitate a king without getting into trouble. So it gives you this license. And I'm particularly fascinated by the sort of the gender politics in Shakespeare. In As You Like It, the character, the actor, who is a woman who disguises herself a man. They're called the transvestite comedies, the four of them, because of that. And I really like the idea. Once I suggested it to AI of taking these people and into a contemporary sort of scene and building them out in that way. And that's probably enough from me. I'm going to leave some space for Tina, who's going to look at some really other interesting aspects of musical synthesis. And so this lady, she's one of the pervy kings and queens, and her headdress comes from a nonsensical song that appears in As You Like It called "What Shall He Have That Killed the Deer?" And they sing about the horn, the lusty horn, and thereby hangs many tales. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, for that very interesting and fascinating presentation. So on then to